welcome back to another YouTube video, guys. More importantly, welcome back to another auto rifle video. We've talked about the LSW and the MSW in the past on this channel, but what about the IAR platform? So today, we're going to be discussing the Reky AR from Red Right Hand. But before we dive into that, guys, please like, comment, subscribe to the channel. All of the things that you guys do help me and motivate me to make more content, grow the business, and continue putting out education for everybody. You know, this year we've pushed a lot of other types of content other than our normal traditional YouTube videos, specifically with the Minuteman Classroom, which is kind of a evolution to the modern Minuteman theory. That series isn't done yet, but we've taken a classroom style approach to a lot of educational material that people might have overlooked or have never been exposed to in the past. So bear with me, guys. More YouTube videos are coming. I am only one man. So to be completely transparent up front, folks, Red Right Hand did send me this 14.5 Reky AR. They have sent me a ton of stuff in the past. I've bought stuff from them in the past. My friends have bought stuff from them in the past. We have a great relationship with Cody over at Red Right Hand, and he is killing it. Not just in the auto rifle field, but also moving into the belt fed side of things as well, with Lima 6 and their belt fed and what will eventually be the Red Right Hand Reky RPD. He was on a couple of good podcasts recently and really broke down a lot of the science and the thinking, and it shows how much effort has gone into thinking out these weapon system platforms. It's very easy to just throw things together and go, this is its purpose. But does it actually perform to the standards and the requirements of that purpose? Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But you can be guaranteed that Cody is doing his homework. So what we have here is the Reky AR, aka the 14.5 auto rifle. Now, this is not the first generation of the Reky AR that Red Right Hand has released. It used to previously be available in the 16-inch. However, that was not very popular, especially with how many guys like to throw cans on the end of their auto rifles. You know, at that point, after you have a 16-inch barrel, another 2.5, 3.5 inches for, a suppressor, guys are like, well, I'll just buy their Reky LMG, which is perfectly acceptable. The Reky LMG fits the LSW auto rifleman role fantastic, but carrying around 20 inches is not for everybody. And Cody understood that, and I communicated with him with that. A lot of other guys talked to him about it. So he chopped it down to 14.5 to kind of match more of an M4 style vibe, but it still matches the same purpose that we see in the Marine Corps today with the implementation of the M27, aka the IAR. So the 14.5, obviously a lot shorter than the 20-inch. And a lot of people ask, why would I need a 14.5 auto rifle versus just carrying the 20-inch or just carrying a standard 14.5 rifle to begin with? Well, the first big thing that should come to mind with that is the capability you're getting with a 14.5 auto rifle. Just like the Reky LMG and the Reky MAR platform, you're getting the heat mitigation system, the upgraded parts, and everything that comes with being an auto rifle. It's just in a smaller package. Now, just because it has the heat mitigation system, just because it's built like an auto rifle and it's supposed to perform like an auto rifle, does not mean it's going to stand toe-to-toe necessarily with its Reky LMG counterpart. You have a shorter barrel, shorter gas system, and Cody talks about this a lot, but you're going to have a lot more heat buildup within this rifle. This rifle can be an auto rifle, yes, but it does not mean that it should be an auto rifle full-time. So positions that you might find the 14.5 auto rifle perfect for might be somebody like a team leader. Team leaders traditionally in the military sense normally bring some sort of special capability to the fire team. They might have an upgraded rifle compared to the rest of the fire team. They might have a special type of optic. In some senses, they may have, an M203 or grenade launcher style capability. Normally falls to like senior team leader, maybe squad leader, something in there. Regardless, team leaders normally have something to bring to the fight. They're a little more experienced. Hopefully they know how to implement these things, just a little bit better. So they might bring the capability of the auto rifle to that fire team so that if the time comes when that, rate of fire needs to be picked up, we need to increase suppressive fire, whatever it might be, very temporarily, somebody else in that position can fill that role. Another great position for this, and it's wonderful that we're pushing towards a market that is discussing more with belt feds, available to the civilian market, is assistant gunners. If you are somebody that is supporting a, belt-fed weapon operator or an actual traditional machine gunner, whatever that might be, in the event that something happens to that belt-fed system or something happens to that gunner and you're separated from that weapon system, whatever it might be, having an auto rifle to be able to temporarily step up and fill those gaps and increase rates of fire, especially accurate increased rates of fire, is going to be extremely, extremely important. You look at the field of, combat engineers and whatnot. The infantrymen are going to get a little upset in the comment section as I say this, but by doctrine, field engineers are supposed to be able to fill the gaps of the infantry when called upon. So field engineers might not carry full 20-inch length auto rifles all the time, but they might carry something like this. If you are an individual or a group of individuals, an organization of such, that operates a lot in and out of vehicles, 20 inches plus a suppressor adds up really fast when you're trying to get in and out of a vehicle, especially civilian vehicles. The community defense organizations, Minuteman groups, all that kind of stuff, you're not rocking, military vehicles and hopping out the back of 7 tons where you have a lot more room. You're in pickup trucks, you're in Suburbans, you're in Jeeps, stuff like that. So 20 inches plus a suppressor or no suppressor is going to make it very hard to get in and out of vehicles and sometimes work around vehicles. It's not impossible, but just because there's a better way to do it doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it that way. And there's many other applications that I can go on as to where, a kind of baby auto rifle fits into that role. But at the end of the day, this can be every rifleman's rifle. It's a little more pricey than building out something like a BCM or something like that. That's a fine rifle. It's a fine upper. But having the ability to be an auto rifleman when needed and knowing and trusting that your weapon system is, going to be up for the task and be able to handle that higher heat, that higher rates of fire, that tension that is put on your weapon system should bring a lot of confidence. Now, unfortunately, it is going to be a little bit more pricey of a system to get into. Not everybody's going to be there. But in a perfect world, maybe guys are. Now, something else that really helps the auto rifle world now is obviously the availability of FRTs and 3-stage triggers and whatnot to the civilian market. In this exact auto rifle, I have the Atrius 3-stage trigger with the Sons of Liberty mil-spec trigger in here. Drop in, super easy, runs like a charm, didn't have to do anything to it. That's fantastic. And there were a lot of guys that bought the Atrius triggers when they dropped, and tons of the other super safeties and FRTs and everything through recent years. They're all over the place now. But just throwing that into any run-of-the-mill mil-spec upper, it's fun to go to the range and just mag dump it trash. But if you're looking at the actual application of those FRTs and what they're really supposed to be doing, having a weapon system that's going to be able to handle that a little bit better also brings ease of mind. So at the end of the day, guys, 14.5 auto rifle can really be anybody's auto rifle in the perfect world. And there's going to be more content that we do on this as the auto rifle and the belt-fed industry continue to build for the civilian market and for that civilian American rifleman. In the perfect world, if you have a fire team, general, rifle fire team, you might have 3 guys with a 14.5 auto rifle, and then you have 1 dedicated LSW gunner that's carrying a 20-inch or 22-inch auto rifle upper. And, that brings a lot of capability to the field that you may not always need, but it's nice to have that if you need it. So let's walk through this gun real quick. So just like a lot of the other auto rifles that Red Right Hand has, they are customizable to some extent. Or you can buy ones that he's kind of pre-built out. He said, hey, these parts rock, these parts work. Here's a template. You can take it like that, whatever it might be. But you're going to find a mid-length gas system. For me, I've got roughly the 12.5-inch Midwest quad rail. Quad rail is king. M-LOK's nice. Quad rail is king. With my dead air silencer suppressor on the end of it, it adds roughly 2 inches to the overall length. So it's really not that bad. And from there, I really just took a lot of the attachments I had from my old primary rifle, which was a 13.7, and slapped them on here. I've got my Surefire dual white and IR weapon light on here. I've got my old gen Holosun IR laser on here with the dual Surefire pressure pad, and then the ACOG. The ACOG is king in my opinion, especially for the general rifleman. There's debates of red dots and holographic sights and ACOGs and LPVOs and what's best and blah, blah, blah. I've been running the ACOG for over 10 years at this point, and I'm telling you, ACOG is king. It's a little goofy to kind of get used to if you're not used to it. Once you are used to it, it clicks just like that. And then a top red dot on top of that, just for the things that get a little up close and personal. Outside of that, we're sitting on a pretty, standard lower BCM and Magpul attachments, all that. Like I said before, we have the Atrius trigger installed. Now, something that is pretty common with auto rifles is you have to play with what buffer spring, what buffer tube is going to work best based on, what caliber auto rifle you're working with, because we have multiple calibers of auto rifles now. Barrel length, suppressed versus unsuppressed, so on and so forth. Now, some of the key features that carried over from the Reky LMG to the Reky IAR is the adjustable gas block here on the top. Obviously, we're a little far away from each other right now. We're not quite personal. You guys are kind of just at a distance. But we have the adjustable gas block up top, which will also help with you if your buffer spring and whatnot may not be quite to spec on what it really needs to be. You can play with the adjustable gas block a little bit more, and help that out. And then, of course, underneath, you have the heat mitigation system, HMS. And essentially what that means is when this rifle gets super, super hot, and, we need to rapidly cool it down because we need to keep fighting, or, it's just, unbearably hot, whatever it might be, I want to avoid the chance of cook-off if I've really put rounds down range. I can put water directly onto this upper and not worry about compromising the integrity of my barrel, because this heat mitigation system that surrounds this barrel, and Cody has done plenty of other videos and podcasts that talks about the science behind this. It's really cool. But essentially, when I apply water to this heat mitigation system and it cools the heat mitigation system rings, as that cools, it pulls heat away from the barrel. So a lot of people talk about, compromising the integrity of my barrel and so on and so forth. When we dump water onto this heat mitigation system, it's not going to the barrel. It's going to the heat mitigation system. And that is the key indicator of it all. We have up on our website, there is a chart, which is kind of a modified Marine Corps standard rates of fire charts for sustained, rapid, and cyclic fire for auto riflemen. It was specifically more for LSW, MSW gunners, but obviously you have the auto rifle as well. And, if you're shooting 300, 400, 500 rounds from a cyclic moving down to a rapid rate, and even then eventually down into a sustained rate, this barrel is going to be hot. It's going to be hot, hot. So being able to take out a canteen that you might have, set up on your kit as an auto rifleman to kind of give this a little cool off during the engagement or between engagements, whatever that might be, can be really important, not only for, being able to use it a little bit easier because it's so dang hot and avoiding cook-off and doing all that kind of stuff, but also, protecting and, prolonging the life of your weapon system. Now, if you go dump 300 or 400 rounds, out of an auto rifle that's rated for this kind of stuff, are you going to have cook-off? No, you're not. We've got to be putting some serious rounds down range that you're probably not even enough carrying on your kit to worry about that. Now, if you take a standard mil-spec upper that's not auto rifle rated, is not full auto rated, and, you go dump 400 or 500 rounds or more through it, chances are, potentially, you might have really thin barrels, not great gas systems, and there's the chance that you have a cook-off pretty early. But for auto rifles, nobody's going to be firing enough rounds to even worry about that. But it is an option for us to help prolong our weapon system. Now, obviously, magazines come into question. Most people carry, standard 30-round magazines, Magpuls, whatever it might be. 30-round magazines are pretty much the standard. So you'll see a lot of LSW gunners that kind of share their kit on the internet, regardless if they're military or not military. Some guys rock 40s. I personally am not a big fan of 40s. Reason number A being most mil-spec pouches fit 30-round mags. For a while, we already had problems with mag pouches fitting, 2P mags, let alone 40-rounders. So I'm not a big fan of that. But 40-rounders are also, get you really, really close to touching the ground, if not already from the prone. And unless you have a bipod to help keep that up off the ground, which if you have a 14.5 auto rifle, you're probably not rocking a bipod like you would a traditional, LSW. You're going to have some troubles, I think, with that 40-round mag resting on the deck. That's just my personal opinion. Some people have different length arms. Some people get in the prone position differently. Some guys can, mitigate it. But for me, the trade-off from a 30 to a 40 round mag isn't that big of a deal. Now, of course, we also have the D60s, which there's also been a lot of controversy about on the internet as far as their reliability and whatnot. This is a Gen 3 D60. There's various generations at this point, and I know when the first generation came out, there was some kind of feeding issues that kind of came into everything. But honestly, I have been using this D60 for quite some time, and I've not had any issues with it. The D60s have come quite a long way. This is the standard for LSW gunners to start with, but even for, auto rifle guys, if you're the guy that rocks the 14.5 Reky AR, maybe you just start with the D60, because if you know that your engagement, if you know that an engagement is going to occur, you're going to have that increased rate of fire at the beginning, whatever it might be. Even if it doesn't matter if you're defensive or offensive, you know that first spark of the engagement is going to be at an increased rate of fire. So starting off with the D60 is not a horrible idea. Some people are going to be like, oh, it's heavy. Grow up, be an adult, be a man, go to the gym. Not really worried about it. So D60 is great to start off with. And then, of course, it's not on here for the demonstration purposes, but sling, you need a good, reliable sling. This weapon platform does get a little heavier than your standard AR, but all considered with, a red dot on top of an ACOG, suppressor, laser, light, quad rail, all that kind of stuff, this really is not much heavier than any M4 that I carried in the Marine Corps. I wouldn't even say it's heavier at all as it is. The Red Right Hand line of auto rifles is pretty lightweight, even up to the MSW and 308. It's surprisingly very light. But you need a good sling. And just like the ACOG that I've been using for over a decade, I also stand by the Vickers sling. That's just the Marine Corps in me. It works, so I'm going to continue using it. And it's on all of my rifles because I like them. But aside from all of that, guys, auto rifles have their purpose. A lot of people debate what their purpose might be. Regardless, what is important is that, you understand its capabilities, you understand its limitations, and you understand why you are implementing it. If you can't think of those three things, then the auto rifle, regardless of small 5.56, long 5.56, 308, doesn't matter. If you can't figure out those basic things, auto rifle is not for you. But if it is, train with it. Everything you do, guys, you have to train with it. It does us nothing to pile up goodies in a closet or a basement or an office or whatever it might be and never actually get it out and train with it. Think about the logistics behind it. Think about its implementation. Think about all of its capabilities and what it brings to the table. But the most important thing besides that is going to be community. I've talked about it on this channel a ton, guys. This is coming out shortly after the Charlotte, North Carolina stabbing, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, everything that's going on in the foreign world, Asia, Europe, everything. Community is important, guys. I cannot stress enough how important community is. You have to stand by your community. You have to stand by those that share the same moral values and principles that you do, whether they're of the same, exact denomination of your religion or even your religion at all. There's a lot of guys that say, I can only hang out with these people. And if that's what you want to do, that's great. But as a community, we need to learn to come together a little bit more and put our petty differences aside and really, really, really try to move forward. I will keep the rest of my personal opinions to myself on what the way forward may or may not be. But regardless, at the end of the day, we need to have community. We need to look out for one another, and we need to hope for a better future. If we don't have that, then the future is pointless. But as long as we have community, so long as we have faith, and so long as we have family, we have a future. That's all I've got, guys. As always, train hard, train often.